Today in Capechi's Corner, we're going to look at the distributive property. When we're looking at the distributive property, we also need to talk about like terms. So like terms are terms in the expression that have the same variable and they also have the same power. So if you remember from a previous lesson, the variable is a letter, power is the exponent. So for instance, in number 1, we have 2x plus 3x. They do have the same variable, the x is the same, and the power is also both to the first power. So I am allowed to combine those, and I get 5x. In number 2, I have 2x plus 3y. Now right away I notice that the variables aren't the same. I have an x and a y, so I cannot combine like terms. So I can't combine. And looking at our final example, I have 3x squared plus 4x. Although the variables are the same, they're both x's, one is to the second power and one is to the first power. So although I have the same variables, I have different powers. So this one is another one that I can't combine. In number 1, I'm now going to practice using the distributive property. So I'm going to take 5 times x, which gives me 5x. And I have 5 times 3, which gives me a positive 15. So I'm multiplying 5 by each of the terms inside parentheses. In number 2, I can still use the distributive property. It's just that the negative 3, which is the monomial, is listed after the binomial, which is fine. I'm still going to take negative 3 times 6y, which gives me negative 18y. Negative 3 times 2 gives me negative 6. In number 3, this negative actually stands for negative 1. So I'm going to take negative 1 times 4. I get negative 4. Take negative 1 times negative 3x, and I get positive 3x. In number 4, I have a lot of things going on here, so I have to be careful. So I have negative times 4, which gives me negative 4. Negative times a negative 2c gives me a positive 2c. I need to rewrite these terms to the right of the parentheses, so I have plus 5b minus 4c. So now I still need to see if I can combine like terms, and I do have more than one c, so I can combine that. However, I always want to make sure my final answer is in alphabetical order. So first I'm going to start with the b, since b comes before c in the alphabet. 5b is there by itself, can't be combined. And then I'm going to look at my c, so I have 2c minus 4c. So now remember, if I take 2 minus 4, that gives me a negative 2, and then I add the c. My last term there is going to be negative 4. That's my constant that always comes last. So that's my final answer on that problem. Okay, and looking at a few other examples, in number 1, again, I'm always looking to see if I can combine like terms. And in this case, I have every term has a y. So I have 14 minus 10 gives me 4y. Plus 7y is going to give me a total of 11y. All of those terms happen to have y to the first power. In number 2, I have 7x plus 16y minus 13. I can't combine any terms. I have an x variable, I have a y variable, and I have a constant. So we would just say that this is already simplified. I can't combine any terms anymore. Okay, in number 3, again, I have parentheses, so I know in my order of operations I'm going to have to clean that up a little bit, so I'm just going to rewrite the 4y to the third. And I have plus. Now my y times my 6y gives me 6y squared. And then I have y times negative 9 gives me negative 9y, and my last term is 11. Now there's nothing else I can clean up on that one. That one's it. That's already cleaned up. I have some y's, but I have y to the third, y to the second, and y to the first. So none of them are to the same power. One thing I also want to mention there, this is kind of a good time to say it, when I have 6y times y, which we did in this problem, that gives me 6y squared. But if I have 6y plus y, that is 7y. So it's just a reminder on how you multiply and how you add when using different exponents and variables. For our last sets of problems, we do have, again, they're getting a little longer, so we have to be careful. So I have 8 times 2x, which gives me 16x. And I have 8 times y, which gives me plus 8y, minus, again, now I'm going to distribute the 4. So this gives me negative 20x. And I have negative 4 times 2y gives me negative 8y. So in order of operations, I have gotten rid of the parentheses. Now I have to look to combine my like terms. So I have 16x minus 20. That's going to give me negative 4x. And then I have 8y minus 8y. So remember, I'm just looking at the coefficients, which are the numbers before the variables, and I have 8 minus 8, which is 0. So I wouldn't write 0y. I would just leave that, and that my final answer there is negative 4x. In number 2, again, I have parentheses, so I have to clean that up a little bit. So I have 12x squared plus, now right here, 7x plus x, they're like terms, I can combine them. So that gives me 8x. And I'm going to multiply that by x. And I have plus 9 minus 4. So I just have to clean that up just a little bit. So I have 12x squared plus 8x times x gives me 8x squared plus 9 minus 4. So my last step, all I have to do is add, see what I can combine. So again, I have 12x squared plus 8x squared. They are like terms. They're the same variable raised to the same power. So that gives me 20x squared. Now again, I can look at my constants. Plus 9 minus 4 gives me plus 5. So there's my final answer, 20x squared plus 5.